Hey guys.
Welcome to today's episode of Behind the Signs. We are so happy to be with you today. My name is Joe.
And I'm Liz. Still.
Yep. And today, what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk to you about training and education.
For your team.
For you and for your team.
Well, it comes up a lot in the group, right? So
it does. It's one of our most commonly asked questions.
It is. That and sales and marketing and pricing. I guess all the questions are always coming up.
A lot of repetitive questions.
Which, by the way, as a reminder, if you're in the Facebook group, a couple things. One, invite your friends. Two, don't forget to check out the file section where there's a lot of free stuff. And three, either send us a direct message or post questions in the there's community chats, but then also in the main feed. And Liz and I do our best to track those and talk about them with you. So before we get started, let's take a minute to thank our sponsors. Mm-hmm. I guess it's sponsor. We have one sponsor. I want to really thank Inktavo. Inktavo, they bring you the product Sign Tracker, which I am one of the original founders of Sign Tracker. So you can learn more about Sign Tracker at sign-tracker.com or Inktavo.com. There are links in the notes, and you can always try Sign Tracker for free. No obligation, no risk, and just encourage you to give it a whirl. It's definitely helpful for your sign shop. So that's all I get to say about that.
Yeah, and then also Inktavo offers lots of other products that aren't Sign Tracker, though that's the most important one to us. But they offer lots of products. So if you want to check them out, there's a link in the notes and you can check them out. But Excellent. Most importantly, thanks to you guys.
Yes, for sure.
We definitely wouldn't do this if you guys weren't watching. Because why?
We love you guys.
We both have full-time jobs. This is just a passion project.
It is.
Anyway.
Well, I think it's important for us to the whole point of Behind the Signs and the community group and the things that we do is just to have a place where we can exchange ideas and where people can learn from each other. Because that's, we learn from each other, especially I feel like in the sign industry. And that's an important part of the topic for today. So before we get started though, what's happening in your sign world?
What do you consider exciting, owning a sign company in the age of mass tariffs or?
I think they backed off those a little bit.
They did a little, which has been
for today.
Who knows what tomorrow will bring?
Yeah.
So that's exciting because you just don't know what you'll wake up to.
Yeah. Are you finding clients are pulling back on projects because they're a little antsy about that?
I think more at the beginning of the year, we were seeing a lot of that. People are, things have leveled out a little bit. So I think that projects are kind of starting up.
Well, you guys, so many of your projects are tied to, I know you guys do branding and that kind of stuff too, but so many of your projects are tied to construction. So I can see where people can get a little antsy about that. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing we've seen is most of our construction projects have been running significantly behind schedule.
Really?
Which is, we live in Texas and construction is a immigrant heavy industry. And
that's true.
Right now that's being affected. So construction projects are tending to run a little bit more behind than we've seen. And then we have the combination of that. And some of them were just kind of getting a later start in the year because of
there's so much
the uncertainty of materials
too. So I can imagine.
So much. So
probably all the trades. All the trades are running behind on that.
Yeah.
So. Well, also you and I had the opportunity to talk at the International Sign Association trade show.
We did. And that's very exciting. And so we talked about with, two great people about this topic. So this episode will be just a few nuggets from us, but really the hard hitters are coming on the next episode when we're interviewing Sapna Budev and Wendy Graves. Wendy Graves owns Make It Happen, or she's one of the partners in Make It Happen Signage Academy. And Sapna Budev is the president of Sign Research Foundation, which is obviously great. And she's head of education for ISA. So just great resources and great people to talk to about this topic.
Yeah, they're really passionate about training and education.
They are. So. And kind of what we'll talk about today is more just our experiences with training and education and some of the tools that we've used, I think that's it. So let's just jump right in.
Well, let's just jump right in.
So, I think the biggest thing when it comes to training and education is that you're limited or you feel limited a lot of times to the people that have already been in the sign industry because no one learns about the sign. Like, what is the sign industry?
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part, right? Like, there's no there are some, which I've learned, but there's not a lot of formal education paths to the sign industry.
Right. I think it's slowly but surely kind of starting to happen, though. But there isn't. I mean, think about whether it's people we're talking to through the community or even people that I'm working with on the sign tracker side of things, or just, whatever. A lot of a lot of folks get into the sign industry is multi-generational, right?
Yeah, you're dragged in.
You drag. Well, that's how you get into the
screaming and trying to escape.
Oh, come on. It's been good. Yes, you've been hanging out in sign shops since you were a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, when I get into the sign industry, it was a complete accident. I just stumbled into it. I always like to joke
that I was lied to.
I always like to joke that I was praying and asking God for direction. I was like, please show me a sign. And he was like, okay.
Yeah.
That's a bad dad joke. That's a sign dad joke.
That is such a sign dad joke.
No, but then, I showed up and it was an advertisement, back in the newspaper days, but they needed a salesperson for marketing projects. And when I got there, of course, it was a kind of a dumpy little sign shop, but made some great connections. And that was it. 30 years later, I'm still in the sign industry.
Yeah.
But, when it came to training, that particular sign shop didn't really have any kind of formal training program.
And formal training programs I think that's the difference, right? Like formal training programs to me are linked more with like formal education where you'd go to trade school or you'd go to, and there are some trade school certificates that you can get that could lead you to the sign industry, but they're not sign industry specific, right? Welding, there's more than just welding.
Well, design, sales.
Yeah. And in those programs, they don't really teach the sign industry as an option.
No.
There are definitely some schools that are doing that. And then there was a program here local in Austin that you heard about that was doing internships. Who was that?
That was a sign shop, INR.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And they have summer interns that they pull in from high school. And then from there, they encourage, hopefully they find good future employees, but they encourage these students to look at the sign industry as a possible career option. So I think that's let's talk about that for a minute, because I think as sign shop owners, you currently meet past, and because we did have interns too at my company, some that stuck with us and ended up they're still in the sign industry today from 20 something years ago. Some of them even own their own sign shops. And then, you guys have also had interns and that kind of thing. So I think that's one thing that as a sign shop owner, you should consider opening yourself up to is interns. And then you're going to have to get a little creative on finding interns. So what are some things, how have you guys recruited interns?
Okay. Well, we kind of have an advantage in this area, and I guess I can admit that. So my business partner husband, he is also a college professor here in Austin, and he's a capstone. So he's their capstone course in the design program, which means he's their last course that they take prior to graduation. So he's really seeing like the end result of schooling. So he's getting people.
He can pick the cream of the crop.
He is.
So that's an advantage.
Yeah, it's an advantage. But we've had, that's how we started getting interns. However, we also offered, a lot of your local community colleges offer an internship class, and we put our name on the roster for that internship class, which is earlier on in the program. And they have to complete an internship as part of their degree. So that's a great way to get involved. Almost all community colleges have that have a design program, if you're looking for a design-specific intern. The other way for us now, honestly, we just get resumes for interns daily.
Yeah.
It's out of control.
All for design?
Yeah. all for design. For us, it's all for design.
I mean, you guys are such a design heavy company.
We are a design studio. Yeah. So. And, you know, but interns have done us very well. We have one of our art directors, our longest standing employee, started as an intern.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great way. Having an internship is such a great way to train employees the exact way you want to train them, right? They have no other legacy knowledge of the industry.
So I would say if you're a sign shop owner, even if you're in a smaller town, go and talk to the high school principal or vice principal. And a lot of high schools have shop classes for different things. Some have metal fab classes, but you know, I'm even finding there's a few high schools that actually use SignTrack, which is interesting to take care of the jobs because they want their students to understand the business of running a sign shop.
That's so important.
It's only happened a few times, but it's high school programs that have digital printers. And so they're making signs and banners for the schools. And then they're starting to sell a little bit outside, but you might not have anything like that in your local high school or your school district. But if you're
you probably do have trade schools.
They do. They have this trade high schools. So you're going to have like electricians, welders, even framers and those sorts of things,
you know, absolutely.
And then design, you know, graphic design. So a lot of high schools are teaching like Adobe Suite and all that. And especially now we're getting into, you know, 3D and AI design. So I would encourage you. So you're going to have to think outside the box a little bit, right? So go and talk to someone, make a connection at your local high school and see if that's a path. Also, if you're in a bigger city and there's community colleges or vocational training colleges, I would highly recommend going to hit those up. A lot of them also have job fairs too.
Yeah.
And so just set up a little table, sponsor a table and go and bring samples of what you do, maybe a couple, you know, small channel letters or some printed banners or stickers or whatever, t-shirts, whatever it is you do in the industry. And then just talk to some kids and try to get an intern or two and keep that funnel going in your shop. And look, maybe all of them obviously aren't going to work out to be future employees, but I think you have your pick, right? The cream of the crop, and you'll be able to test drive them and most likely we'll pick up a couple of good employees. So that's, I think, one way. And I think I
don't know how it works with high schools, but I do think that it's important to note that you should pay your interns.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
No free internships.
No free internships.
No free labor.
Well, it's not fair to them.
No. And some high schools might have some weird rules if it's part of like their daily coursework.
Yeah.
So you'd have to work that out with them. But as a general rule, pay your interns.
Yeah. And make it a great experience, because I think we have, as people in the industry, the responsibility to raise awareness around the career path of being in the sign industry, because it's pretty cool. And there's, you know, unlimited, I think, opportunity. It's not an easy trade, obviously, but there is always work. And so I think it's a great thing for us to do as sign shop owners and people that are leaders in the industry to help raise awareness around the industry, and it'll help solve problems. And it takes pressure off our kids.
I mean,
for being in the business, right?
I do understand what you're saying. I do. And I think it's important, like, raising awareness about the industry is important, but, and there's a big but coming. Like, you're a sign shop owner. I'm a sign shop owner. I've hired someone. I don't have time to be their only source of education.
No.
Like, I don't have time to teach them the entire industry. So then what are my, like, let's say we're past interns. That's been great. It's been fun.
And now I have an employee,
couple, right? Or you just have a new employee, right? You've gone into hiring. You have new people. I specifically hire from outside of the sign industry into the sign industry. That's our preference. Not that we wouldn't hire people with sign experience, but most of our employees did not have any prior to working for us. We've just had better luck that way. And I think that's just a preference for each company. But because of that, we have to start from scratch. So like, what resources do I have available to me?
Well, I didn't probably take advantage of some of the resources that were available when I owned my sign shop. Although we did participate in trade shows, but I would say For us, we did have a training program. So if a project manager came in, generally, day one, hey, welcome, let's go to lunch. But like day two, you were sitting down next to a project manager, shadowing that project manager for 2 weeks before you were even allowed to start really getting into the system and working on small projects. So I think there's one, have some kind of internal organization, but two, trade shows are huge, right? So if you're not involved, I hear sign shop owners say this sometimes, like, oh, being involved, it's just expensive to be part of, my local sign association or, ISA. And it's not that expensive, but it's like anything else. You get out of it what you put into it. Mm-hmm. And the educational opportunities that are available, like just TSA, for example, Texas Sign Association, by the way. I'm, obviously I get their newsletter and emails. They're always offering certification training for crane trucks, shop safety, OSHA certification.
Mm-hmm. And that's
UL.
free.
They do a lot of partnerships with UL.
A lot of them are free. Mm-hmm. They also offer, and this is another topic altogether, but they also offer group plans for health benefits. Like they offer lots of things through your local association that you wouldn't necessarily get those group rates.
Yeah.
If you're a small company like I am. You wouldn't get great group rates if you didn't have access to a bigger group like the Sign Association offers.
And continuing education is just part of owning a business, right? So if you own a business, you have to participate in continuing education for yourself and for your employees. And I know that it's an investment, right? Like, oh man, I'm going to send this employee or these 2 employees to a workshop for 3 days. They're not going to be here to do the work. Yeah. But it's like anything else. If you take and you invest that time and bite the bullet and do it, the payoff will be great. One, if an employee feels like they're learning and growing, they're going to be happier and more productive. But 2, you will reap the benefit of the skill sets that they're developing through going to these different training programs. So as much as it seems like, oh man, I don't want to lose Bob, the installer for the day, lose Bob, the installer for the day, because you'll definitely reap the benefits of it and do it for yourself too.
Yeah. I think that for us, like when we go to trade shows, we bring our team. And the reason we do that is we really like to have them talk to suppliers. For us, it's mostly about materiality. We like to see what's new out there, mostly so we can push the limits of it and use it how it's not typically intended to be used. That's what we do. Love my designers for that. Anyway, but we really find it important to see what's new, what new techniques are out there, what new materials are out there. And then for people that are just new to us, new to our team, that's really where you get introduced to things in person, like vinyl. And like you can hear about it, you can see it on a screen, but if you're not doing the work or you don't see it in person, like it's hard to really imagine these things if you've never been in this industry before.
Well, and also too, what's nice about that, so I will say this, I completely agree with you on that. If you have a really good relationship with your supplier, so I'm just going to throw some names out. So we did a lot of work with Resupply. They're huge in this Texas region. And there was other suppliers, obviously, that we worked with too. But with Reese in particular, what was great about that is 2 things. One, we had a great rep that stopped by our shop all the time to visit. And so not just materials, but sometimes even machines, or if we wanted to get into doing electronic message centers, for example. So they would bring out an electronic message center rep with a unit and really teach everyone how the unit worked, talk to the sales reps about how to sell it and pitch it. So it was a training session. Again, with materials, same thing. Also, if you have a really good relationship with your supplier, your material supplier, a lot of times those folks will do open houses. Those are great. First of all, usually they feed you, which is great. Free barbecue. And they're fun, right? You're building connections and there's other sign shops there. And there's usually, it's smaller, right? So they're usually attended by no more than 100 people. So you get some real one-on-one time with like printer manufacturers. A lot of times they'll have a printer there and they'll do a training session on a printer, or they'll do training sessions on proper survey techniques and whatever it might be. And a lot of times those are free. So it's not even like you're paying to go to a trade show. And generally they're really close to your region. So it's the supply house that offers those open houses. So make sure you're not just, ordering a roll of vinyl, from somebody and it gets drop shipped, by UPS or whatever. Really take the time to build relationships with your suppliers and whoever your rep is individually. Have them come by your shop, because then it gives them an opportunity to see what your needs are, and then offer some training and teaching around, those needs. So I would highly recommend that.
Absolutely. Let's break it down a little bit more though, right? Like, let's say you've been doing this on your own, you're stepping out, you're ready to hire your first employee. Let's say they don't have the industry knowledge you have. Well, if you only have one employee, you don't have a PM to sit next to that PM, right? Like if you've hired your first PM, it's now your responsibility to teach them. But then while you're teaching them, who's going to manage the project? I get it. So get that deep in my soul. And I think that I just want to name a few things I know that I've used. I know that we talk a lot more about this in our next episode with Sapna Budev and Wendy Graves.
Right.
Both of them offer phenomenal programs. One I want to talk about that's completely free. And for us, because we don't hire from within the sign industry, it's been really helpful for us. Signs 101, Intro to Signs. So these are courses, they're online. They're offered through ISA and Sign Research Foundation. If you're an ISA member, these courses are free to you. They also have an entire catalog of online courses for everything you can think of in the sign industry. They aren't all free, but they're all very affordable. We're talking like $25, sometimes $50 if it's like multiple parts. So they're super affordable and they're all online and you have months to watch them. I buy them and rebuy them and rebuy them and rebuy them. Every time I hire someone, their first step is, if I don't have someone to sit you next to, here's your computer, Signs 101, Intro to Signs, Signs 102, Signs 103 is coming out now.
Nice.
Like these are just great training programs for the industry that if you're a member of ISA, and I highly recommend you become a member of ISA, and you can do that, by the way, by being a member of your local sign association. So my ISA membership just comes through my local sign association membership. And that's such a great value. So you're not just getting your local classes, you're also getting the International Sign Association resources. Great resources, highly recommend them. We're going to talk more about them in depth. The other one I want to talk about, or if you want to talk about it, Wendy Graves.
Yeah.
So Wendy Graves came on to Make It Happen Signage Academy. We're going to talk with her next episode.
Yep.
And she's offering two courses now. They offer
one on sales and one on fabrication.
It's kind of it's like illumination boot camp, I think, or sales. It's
I know they
one
have
of those.
Sales
they have both.
Boot camp.
Yeah.
I guess we say all that. Signs 101, Make It Happen Signage Academy. I mean, you can find those guys that online or Facebook groups.
And on our next episode, those will be linked.
For sure. Look for the links in that. But those are great resources. But I think, at the end of the day, look, we've had a lot of conversations about working on your business instead of in your business. And if you're just starting out and it's just you, and you're getting to the point where the work is getting a little too much for you to handle by yourself, because in the beginning, let's face it, you're wearing all the hats, right? And I think one of our episodes, we talked to Mike Stevens about that. Like you're doing the sign stuff all day and then the business stuff all night.
You have to.
And so you get to the point where it's like, okay, it just doesn't make sense anymore. I'm going to hire somebody. Just understand that part of running a business, running your sign shop is training. And maybe your first employee, it's more like a mentorship shadowing situation. And you just have, you have a helper. And maybe that helper is making it so that you're now 10 hours of working in the field, installing and printing turns into 7 hours, and then ultimately that person gets to a point where you've trained them enough where you can hire a helper for them to go out and expand your business and get more. But it's all going to be about how successful you are at training and then ultimately being able to let go and trust the employees that you train to do the work so that you can run the business. So I guess that's it. We just want to encourage you to make training an important part of what you do in growing your business.
Oh yeah, it's necessary.
Yeah.
I think that for us, and we've talked about it in other episodes. Like Joe said, you are wearing all the hats, just make sure you know where the lines of each role are, right? And you can do that by developing, job descriptions basically for each hat that you're wearing. So that way, when you can start to delegate, it's easier to take those hats off.
Right. And prioritize which ones need to go first.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's also important that you write statement of processes for each role that you're doing. That way
as you're growing, for sure.
It's so much easier to pass that along to the next person or the first person you hire to say, this is the role I've hired you for. Here are all the tasks that I complete in this role, and here are all the ways that I complete them. That takes time. I get it. It sucks. But the time that it takes to sit down and write that pays for itself tenfold when you can focus on your business and start to grow it because you're able to let go and trust of specific roles in your business.
Helping people do better, learn something new, develop a career. There's a lot of joy in that. And I think
there's a lot of headache in it.
There's a lot of headache. There is a lot of headache. But
Can we just make a note on how I just bleeped myself live and in person?
Yeah, but there is a lot of joy in helping people find a path. And so anyway, I think as a business owner, especially in the sign industry, there's a lot of times where it's difficult and things are hard and clients are hard and getting materials and getting things done right, hard. But there is a lot of joy in helping people learn things and develop skills and do well in a career. So I'm just going to leave it at that. That's all I'm going to say. I know it's touchy-feely, but this is how I feel. And
not everyone likes helping people like that, that's okay too. Helping yourself is also very joyful.
That's true. That's true. Anyway,
thank you so much for watching.
Yep. We love you guys and happy that we're here with you, and we'll see you on Behind the Signs. And don't forget to keep asking questions because it helps us to do this. Yep. So get on the group, ask questions, and we'll see you
next time
on the next one.
Bye.
See ya.